Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. So today I have a special guest on, Joe Mittiga. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. He's one of those guys that, boy, as soon as I started talking to him, it was just click, 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 you know, and we were just talking a few minutes ago and it was the same thing. It's just, we have some similarities in our past and our present. And boy, the way this guy functions and walks through life just really resonates with me. So without further ado, here is Joe. Hey, Joe.
Glenn, how are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome to the show. So thank you for joining me. I know I was on your live stream a little while ago, and now I'm having you on mine, which I've been looking forward to. So why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself, because you know you better than I know you.
Sure. Happy to. Well, first off, watching that intro, I'm in. Whatever we're doing, I'm coming, right? Yeah. I love the beach. I love all of that. So thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure. Love doing these types of calls. Love how small the world has become, right? I'm in Atlanta. Yeah. You're in Dominican Republic. When I did my live stream, I was in Atlanta and you're up in the Northeast somewhere. So, my story, it's kind of typical, but not, I think a lot of people live it. Most people don't necessarily know how they come out the other side. Born and raised in that stereotypical cultural Italian culture. I'm in the Midwest. Grew up very independent, grew up, kind of boundaryless, if you will, which at the time I thought was great. I didn't have a time I had to come in. I went in because everybody else's parents made their kids come in. So I was like, I wasn't going to hang out by myself. So at the time I thought it was pretty cool. And I was one of these very high functioning kids in the school world. I was the athlete. I was the singer. I did all of that. I was kind of in the middle of all those groups. Never really worked hard at anything, didn't have to. Progressed through life, was the typical high school drinker of the day, which turned into the typical high school drinker of the college years, and where a lot of my friends just kind of stopped or slowed down. Not all. In fact, one man never did and killed himself, literally. I just kind of kept the pace. And where my world changed from kind of a yesterday to a today, me literally, happened on February the 13th. I tell the story 1,000 times. And for all of your listeners, I'm telling you, today I call myself a God guy, not a religious guy, because quite honestly, I tried to read those books and Glenn, it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I wish I was one that could read the Bible or read the Quran or read somebody. I said, what the heck? It's been around 2,000 years. There's got to be good stuff in that. And I don't really care where it comes from, right? I get to about the seventh word and I'm like, doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. But, today I call myself a God guy. When I was 26, I did like this. I said, listen, here's me, big negotiator. I'm 26. Listen here, God, you don't bother me. I won't bother you. We'll be good. I think back, I'm like, you arrogant.
No wonder why we get along so well. That sounds like something
arrogant punk. But at the time, I meant it. And true enough, and I wasn't the kid that got in trouble. I went to jail because of a couple DUIs, jail, 24 hours, I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't destructive. I was decently respectful. I didn't hurt anybody on purpose for sure. But crazy, wild, always pushing the limit for sure. And then one day, a buddy of mine comes in, and I thought nothing of it. I've been an entrepreneur my entire adult life. I went to Purdue University, great Big Ten school, had a double degree in geological engineering and civil, And again, smart enough to be able to make it through going to class half the time. But when I got out, I kind of learned two things in college, that myself and a boss were probably never going to get along, and I learned how to play chess. So those were the two things that investment gave me, right?
Very valuable. Very valuable lessons.
Yes. And of course, being the entrepreneur, I could kind of do my own thing, make my own money, make my own hours, and act in ways I wanted to within society's reason. So anyways, long story short, I'm right before my 31st birthday in February. I turned 31 in in March that year. A buddy of mine comes in the basement where I'm living. We were living in I was living on the unfinished side of a finished basement. So didn't think much of it, doing my thing, making money, working. And my buddy comes in just ranting and raving, hollering, screaming. I'm like, Lincoln, what the heck is wrong with you? He says, you're never going to believe what these blankety blanks want me to do. I was like, what is it? What could be so horrible? He says, they want me to go 90 days and and he's dramatic as heck, 90 days and 90 meetings and not drink. You're thinking, who would want to do that? Like,
yeah.
What would anybody even think of wanting to do that? And I'm telling you, at the time, I was so baffled. And I realized it's like, when was the last time I went 30 days, let alone a week, but just 30 days? And it was in that moment. That's why it's kind of before and after, right? That day. Because never until that afternoon had I ever even conceived the possibility of an alcohol drug-free life. And my drug of choice was marijuana. Thank God they don't have the drugs today that they had back then. Probably wouldn't have made it with my personality, that's for sure. So I said, yeah, it's probably 14 or 15, literally. So not that was the awakening. The awakening was, I can do it. No big deal. I'm going to do it. Like going 90 days, right?
Yeah.
I said, okay, which I was surprisingly made the first 6 days pretty easy. It was on that seventh day, right? Which is now February the 20th, 1994. So I've been sober 32 years. I conveniently let myself into a buddy's house. In other words, I broke into my friend's house that had drugs and alcohol everywhere, South Atlanta, pouring down rain, and my addiction literally had me by the throat. My body was craving and yearning. I was going to die, I thought. And I remember saying, if I can just sit down, I can leave. And I sit down in a chair, which was a chair, actually my chair. And I'm holding on to the rails like this, and I'm watching the clock tick, tick, tick. And I say, oh, goodness, that's been 20. Oh, crap, that was a second. Each tick is a second. My brain, though, it's like an hour. After about 30 minutes, I literally knew I was done. I wasn't making it. So I get up. I go just like this. I said, God, if I'm not supposed to drink or drug today, I need your help. Rush of energy head to toe. Little tear goes down my face. Walked right out the door. All compulsion's gone. That's a true life story.
Wow.
All compulsion's gone.
That's amazing.
54 days later, I'm traveling back from Florida. Same craving has me really hard. Not as hard, but I knew something was going on. Now, this whole time I was in therapy. I had support. I wasn't in any program yet. But I was consciously aware of the inner child and the emotional stuff. And that all happened in my late 20s, where water was coming out of my eyes. I had no idea. They called that thing tears and emotion, no clue. But anyways, and I have vivid memories of some pretty severe abuse in my world. And it wasn't from a parent or a family member. It was from a cousin. And a cousin, I'm 6 or 7, and two 17-year-old boys did some crap with a stick that, you wouldn't do to anybody. They thought they were just having a good time, traumatized me forever, and just completely buried. And in that moment, which now is April the 15th, I knew my life would never be the same. April the 16th is my true sobriety day. Alcohol would be February, but true sobriety, no substance, April the 16th, and over 32 years. Over that following 7 years, left my business, the whole saying, You remove yourself from the playmates and the playgrounds, right?
Yeah.
Closed down my family business of a decade, got rid of all my friends, was dating a girl for a while who 4 months in broke up, moved to Gainesville, Georgia, like 50 miles away in the middle of a business district. So I was living in a finished type area of a warehouse that we owned. I'm in a business district. And for the following 3 years, I lived on less than $3,000 a year. This is the mid 90s. This is before cell phones. This is before, I didn't have TV. Internet didn't really even exist, none of that. So most of that period I spent in truly what I call sacred silence. And my female friend at the time, we were great friends. I mean, we were great. We dated. Our claim to fame, we'd smoke marijuana the same way. That was our connect. Yeah. Anyway, long story short, about 4 months after I got sober, she went into the program thinking she could get me back. She tells the story herself. She says, I went in trying to get him back. I stayed in because I said, the heck with him, I'm staying sober. And
good for her.
To her credit, she's now 4 or 5 months behind me, 30 some odd years sober, literally.
Oh,
she and I stay in touch every 4 or 5 months, all these years. So during that process, right, I'm in complete non-communication pretty much with the world. At this point, I'm living in a bedroom with a bathroom of a person's home with the entrance and exit out the front. And I just spent most of my time in there. And all of a sudden I start hearing a voice in my head. And the voice says, you're going to write. I said, I ain't writing. The voice said, you're going to write. I said, I am not writing. And I keep looking because it's right over here, the papers. And sure enough, the voice finally says to me, you're writing or you're not sleeping? I said, you blankety blank. I'm cussing. I didn't at the time. And that's why I think these kind of conversations are important, because at the time, I didn't know that was God. I didn't know that was a higher power. I didn't know anything. I just thought I was nuts, quite honestly. I'm bantering with myself is all I knew, right? Well, sure enough, I picked up a piece of paper. I work on legal side pads of paper that just look like this. That's how I wrote back in the day. And a poem called Soulmates came through me. I'm literally just here and writing.
Wow. 2
or 3 days later, another poem, Dark Before the Dawn. There's like 3 poems that came through me. And then one day I was told to, basically, I had no money, like literally went hungry a lot, but I had to go buy pencils, because I did in pencils, and 4 or 5 legal pads of paper, because it was time to start writing. The following 22 months, that's exactly what I did. It took me 22 months, 105,714 words, channeled from word 1 to word 100,000, literally. The book at the time was called Your Inner Child Has Rights Too. And basically it was my story about how my world was normal, like most people. 99% of the people watching this right here, it's normal. They're not buried in disease. They're not. It's normal. But you got wacky stuff going on. We all kind of have wacky stuff going on. That was me. It just was. But we have those moments, right? And so the book comes through, and then about a year or so later, same kind of experience happens again. That book was called 21st Century Sales from the Soul. The first book was over 200 pages of written. The second book's about 150 pages of all written out. And then my life is progressing, going through. One day somebody says, Joe, you might like this AA program. And I remember thinking, I don't need AA, I don't drink. And he says, it's a spiritual program, Joe. I'm like, really? He says, yeah. I said, okay, I'll go. Now, at this point, Glenn, I hadn't drank, drugged, nothing in almost 17 months. I'm walking in the door. I'm like, where do I sign up? I hear this is a spiritual place. Where do I get to sign? And it was fabulous. What I learned, 12 steps to what? 12 steps to creating a relationship with a power greater than yourself, which is exactly what I needed. Because I was no alcohol, but I still felt empty, vacant, lost, right?
Right.
I'm like, what the heck? I make decent money. I'm not drinking and drugging. Why do I still feel so? Because I couldn't say I felt like, I don't know what word I can use here. Not good. I was going to cuss. I'm not going to cuss on your show. But because I wasn't drinking, right? But I still felt empty, lost. So sure enough, I sign up. Sign up, right? You go, well, what do I do to sign up? Well, you just come back tomorrow and we'll show you. What do I do to? Well, you just keep coming back, right? So I did, and I was active in programs for years. And then again, a true 12-step program, how you find community, you find your story. You find somebody else who has a similar story as yours and you commune. Yeah. I never found my story. I was 4.5 years into AA, and I went a lot, where a man told his sponsor's story about being struck sober. That was me. February 20th, I was struck sober, literally gone. 4.5 years in the program. And by this time, I'm working the steps. Hardest thing I ever did was there was a guy, his name was Wayne V, sitting across. I smell like this all the time. He's my guy. What was I trying to do, Glenn? I was trying to ask him if he'd be my sponsor.
Right.
It took me 6 weeks. 6 weeks. I was Mr. Big Bad Muscle Bound. I was 220 pounds of pure muscle back. Mr. Big Bad Muscle Bound, whatever. I was terrified to walk across from here to 8 feet and ask the guy if he'd be my sponsor. Finally did it. And I never even asked him. I walked up and I said, I'm like bantering and babbling a little bit. And he says to me, would you like me to be your sponsor? Yes. and communion happened, connection happened. Greatest guy on the planet helped me bring back in a sense of community, from isolation, not physical isolation, but just not emotionally, spiritually connected to anybody. You can be in a room full of people and still feel isolated. I think a lot of people right now watching this, I got a great life. What are you talking about? Plenty of money, my people, but I'm missing the something, right? A lot of people find that something in communion. So you just keep fast forwarding. I end up in a church called Unity Church, which is a non-denominational church, which I could connect with that. The traditions that I grew up in from different types of more structured religions. It wasn't that I didn't believe in the ultimate concept there was a God. I couldn't connect with the structures of the organizations. Yeah. And I'm the guy that says, I don't care if there's 500 people in this room that like it. I don't, I can't. I was that guy. Yeah. So anyways, I connected one day. I look across the room and I said, I'm going to marry her. And sure enough, it was the preacher's daughter. And we got married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 2 years later, we got married. All of my book stuff just kind of sat. We had a great marriage, 2 great kids, which live with me now about 10 years in. Our spiritual paths just kind of went separate directions, quite honestly. Great gal. Still good friends today. Not good friends. We're still connected today, right? Our kids. She comes to my house every day because my kids live with me. It's not like we had this knockdown, drag out, No, we just did it different. We parented very different. And I say that because I'm seeing it more and more. And it leads up to how my book We came through, how my other book. So I'm 20 years now, Glenn. Fast forward 20 years, right? From when I wrote the books, 10 years before that, get married 10 years, separate, divorced. Now we're 10 plus years later, or 20 plus years later. And I'm on this podcast. September 22nd. It's coming up right now. We're close to, it's already passed. 3 years ago, right? I'm on a podcast. I'm watching this beautiful woman, which I'm not an online guy much, share this story. And she says, I've had a great life. She had just sold her business for over $20 million, sold the family house at $2 million, launched 2 great kids, even her dog passed, like literally moving in. And she says, my only failure in life was my divorce. And the same big voice that wrote those books come through me and says, I'm screaming at my own television, right? My computer. You didn't fail your marriage. You chose to live your divinity over your humanity. Mm-hmm. And that voice was the same voice, Glenn, that badgered me 25 years ago. And sure enough, a new book started coming through me called Unequally Yoked, which I'm 70% done. And basically, as Unequally Yoked started writing, just like I did before, longhand, I have this idea. Hey, I need to go get that old book. I did. I found it. It's in a box, 20 years. It comes out on a 100 meg desk. Remember what those were, Glenn?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Try to find somebody who can get data off that these days. Every young person that knows technology, that thing was older than everybody I knew, right?
Oh, yeah.
4 months to find a man, and his world was recovery of when your computer goes to the bottom of the ocean, he can get his stuff off. That's his expertise.
Yeah.
It comes in. I send it. My guy says I send it to get it. He gets it on a disk so I can put it in an email. I send it to a friend of mine who's an editor, kind of graphic designer in Chicago. He says, Joe, it's backwards. Like, what do you mean it's backwards? He says it's backwards. I said, well, just flip it. He says, Joe, I can't flip it. It's a PDF. And the book came through, the technology of the day. Where print on demand now is everywhere.
Yeah.
Print on demand, when this book was around for about 2 weeks, it was brand new. And it was literally in a PDF backwards, 275, 274, this way. So it took him literally 3 or 4 months, copy, paste, to do it. So it's 6 months. We're in 6 months, right? So anyway, long story short, keep fast forwarding. I come across somebody. His name's Tom Freeland. He's my publisher. He says, I like the book. It's been that book for 25 years, but we can do better. The title and the cover, we can do better. It's like, wow, okay. Love you. Love the honesty. Turn that book into Healing Addiction. And then my book, which was 21st Century Sales for the Soul, turned into Enlightened Leadership, turned into Awaken Greatness, was there. And I'm thinking, time to do that. Well, I hear the same voice. Time to write another book. The difference this time, and then before I'm handwriting, now technology, all I do is put the headphone on and I can talk, and my computer can print faster than I can speak. So my book, which is coming out here now, the next week or two, was literally dictated through me almost. And this book, where in the past it'd take me 20 months, 2.5 years to write it, I actually created this book in less than 90 days. And
wow.
And what is, and this is the book that's coming out now, and Awaken Greatness is actually coming out next year. What I'm witnessing, Glenn, and you and I live it. I've never met you. I've never met you face to face. I've never been closer than 2,000 miles away from you, literally.
Yeah.
The last time we talked, first time you're in Dominican Republic, I'm in Atlanta, then you're in the Northeast. But technology allows it to happen. And there are more and more people waking up and living through what I just call a divine sense of self, more and more. So what the word we, is it describes how every human being has 3 parts. A human self, which you call ego, whatever you want, a divine self, and an inner self. Well, when you're in therapy and stuff, your therapy is typically to heal that inner self of the wounds of your yesterday, right? That's therapy. Right. But there's most of the world, they live a pretty normal life, and the traumas of their past aren't affecting their normal life. A little bit, but not really affecting. Most people are not in therapy like me. They're not. They just live a normal life. But that divine part, the divine sense of self, is waking up in people more and more. And I just call it a human transformation of consciousness. And I use the example. 150 years ago, Glenn, human consciousness, it was perfectly fine to own a human being. 150 years. 60, 70 years ago, 80 years ago in the States, when Elvis Presley did his first guitar on Ed Sullivan, they didn't show him from the waist.
Exactly.
Women's movement of the 60s, the Vietnam War of the 70s, you just go through the eras of time and how consciousness just keeps shifting. What was bizarre and peculiar 50, 60, 70 years ago is normal now. If you literally think about the whole idea of positive affirmations, writing goals. We didn't grow up with writing goals when we're 15. It wasn't the thing. You know, the Wayne Dyers of the world, probably the only active one now, Tony Robbins, but he's only been doing it 30 years. The John Bradshaws of the world, or the Zig Ziglars. Before Zig Ziglar, the whole concept didn't exist. Now it's everywhere, right?
Yeah. It's so interesting because I drew that line years ago too. Like the really a lot of the spiritual movement kind of started taking place in the self-help movement.
Yes.
You know, with the Zig Ziglar, you know, more of a business oriented, because I think, you know, they could find what works. And to me, if something works consistently and it's able to be repeated in microcosm and macrocosm, the reason that it's duplicatable and the reason that it works well is because it's in alignment with a spiritual law.
Yes.
You know, that governs the universe. So it's like, so all these people, they're like, well, geez, I made a successful business, and then I duplicated it and made another one and another one and another one. And everybody wants what I have. So what I'll do is I'll just put together the way that I think is different than the way that they're thinking. So I'll teach them how to think the way that I'm thinking so they can have what I have. Right. So they're really teaching spiritual laws, a lot of this stuff, but it was just framed in business perspectives and self-help perspectives, you know? And this is like, that's what I saw with my father. My father was very much like that. He was just very successful at what he did because of the way that he walked towards fear instead of away from it. The way that he saw opportunity, the way he set his priorities and lived by them. So there was certain things, you know, that I was like, oh, wow, he does all this stuff. And then later in life, as I opened up to the spiritual stuff, I'd have conversations with him, and he's like, and I'd be like, yeah, this is, you know, spiritual law. This is how it works. He's like, oh, that reminds me of when I was working at this company and this is what I did. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly the same thing. You know, yes. You know, so it's cool when you can kind of make the connections and draw the lines, and, you know, and you can with anything, because it's the things that govern the universe, you know?
Absolutely. And I agree completely. And the way, you know, where I talk about here, connecting in a divided world, what is truly divided? Divided, your politics might be, the color of your skin, where you live, that is. But the true essence of who you are, we're all the same. We're all created from the same creator. That's why I don't get into the religious conversation. I don't. Because the truth of the matter is, if you really look at what religion is, the base of religion talks about do today to live a different afterlife. Fabulous. However that works for you is good. I'm talking about your today and your tomorrow, not your afterlife. I'm talking about your today and your tomorrow. And what I'm literally witnessing, right, is more and more people. And again, folks like us who have communities and we're out there more in the business world and whatever, we come across people a lot. I'm coming across more and more people. I met a woman out of Texas, and she just thought she was nuts. Literally, she thought she was crazy. Because 6-8 months ago, she starts hearing God in her head. And I end up meeting her because her husband was 2 weeks in treatment. So she was introduced, she was connecting with me so I could kind of help him, you know, and thank God he's 7 months now. But as I'm talking to her, right, it's like, her words were, I just thought I was nuts, because she's waking up to something that a year ago was completely not there. Now 8 months, it's like badgering her. So what the concept of we is that as each person that's waking up and living more from that divine sense of themselves, as we're all living in from that divine sense, the communion between races and colors and creeds go away, because we're not talking about our humanity, we're talking about our divinity, literally. And what I've witnessed where Awaken Greatness comes in, and I'm been asked to do another TEDx in Dubai, is because what I'm literally seeing and having and witnessing now, us being the generation of change, and how we're in such a wealthy world, but there's an entire swath, a good 20% of the world, they still don't have water, right? There's just a pour. And I say the generation of change now is going to happen to heal all of humanity. 4 basic concepts. Technology allows us to do things now we never could before. You and I are talking. I send money to my orphans. I have 2 orphanages that I literally myself support. I click a button and a man in Uganda has my $5 or my 50. It's that fast. Technology allows us to do things. The Serengeti in 20 years ago, they didn't know how to drill 500 feet. Water's 500 feet in the Serengeti. Now you can because technology. The whole idea that we are in a world where there's more wealth than ever before. There's more money that moves through the global economy in 1 hour than used to exist in all humankind 100 years ago. Yeah. It's that kind of massive. The whole idea of what I call prolonged caregivers. You and I both come across them. Our friend Tom. You heard Tom's story. Tom's my age, a little older. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, a preacher tells him to go to church. He goes to church. He goes on a mission trip to Dominican Republic. He falls in love. So for 20 years, Tom has been in the solution of the the saltwater issues in Dominican for 20 years. Not even looking. I've come across 15 or 20 people just like that. Spiritual experience 20 years ago, living life and still doing it 20 years later. Prolonged caregivers with complete structures in place. All they need is money. And the last thing that's happening, which is going to cause the funding of all of it, I call it Generation Lap. And Generation Lap is 2 different components. Our kids are smarter than we are. Both of my boys are wiser and more talented than we are. First time in human history. It just is. And the other thing that's happening is there's an entire entrepreneurial class of people that have made more money in shorter periods of time than ever before. Literally. Yeah. So there's a whole class of entrepreneur that in generations past, you could work, but you didn't make enough to really retire till you're 70 or 80. My friend, this woman I'm talking about, she had over $25 million. She's 50. Well, when you're living from a sense of humanity, you're out there accomplishing and building and growing, and you're pursuing gratitude in the building of things. And gratitude's a great thing, but it's a characteristic of our humanity. When we shift more into that sense of our divinity, then the action step of your divinity is a giving back. And that's where I say there's a whole world of people that don't know that yet. So you're 52, you sold that. Your natural thing to fill your time is go build another business. But you don't have the passion, don't really want to do it, don't want the commitment, right? So the answer to their what's next is my message is we help you move into your divine sense of self and you give back. So I come up with the idea 1% one time. So any Johnny Smith out there with a bunch of money, right? Whatever it is, I tell this story. You got $1 million. Your father passed. Let's just say your father had $1 million, right? And God rest his soul. I know you're still in the grieving process of that, and I'm sorry for your loss. Eventually, just like with my mother, when my mother passed, I grieved for a couple, 2 or 3 months. But now I don't think of her every day. You know, I have great memories, but the natural process is in normal circumstance, we think of them 6 or 7 times a year, right? Which is normal. So let's just say Johnny Smith passes and he's got $1 million. Does his legacy, do his friends and family really care if they leave $1 million or 990,000? The answer is no. So that 1% of $1 million, $10,000, right? If I give that to Chris Hill, who has been doing wells in Somalia since he was 17 years old, and he's now 40, that $10,000 in wells in Somalia, it's 2 wells, 1 or 2 wells for sure. 10 grand gives water to 3 or 4 or 5,000 people. So my message in the divinity part right now, go find your legacy. Why? Right. Because the water wives, which that country allows, you can marry multiple people. You can literally marry a woman to be a water walker for you, literally. I promise you, you give $5,000 to that well, every time she sees your name on that tag, that water wife's going to be thinking about you every day and then every day after that, right? So the generation of change, I believe there's more and more people that are looking for and wanting to give in those nonprofits. You and I were talking about, the entrepreneurial world you came in with, or you're in the center of, and there's a natural giving back part, right?
Right.
It makes all the sense in the world because that's just part of who you are already. And that's happening more and more and more. So
I agree with you. And
that's what stuff is.
That's that purpose, like you said, and the legacy. And it's so important. And I mean, that, I guess one way to look at it is, legacy and stuff like that, which I think is extremely important. And the other way, like, I went down to the other side of the Dominican Republic and met with some of Tom's team doing, and had a tour of their water facility, bringing all this water to all the people in Dominican Republic. And I go down there and I meet his team, and we're showing around, and we're sitting there having lunch after. And I had heard some of his team's story, like their background and stuff. And I was like, boy, you guys have worked your whole life in, I don't know if charity is the right word, but in either charity or giving back organizations, organizations that really benefited humanity in the earth. Like, they've worked in those fields basically their whole lives. And I'm like, I see you guys have worked in that, you've had this mentality and have worked in this area for your whole lives, basically. It's no wonder that you're working here with Tom's program. And they were like, oh yeah. And they're like, I could never imagine working a regular job. Like, because they've had the experience of working a job in an industry that they know is helping others. And once you have that experience, you realize that it's so much more than just doing your job, like, even when I'm putting together this land project that I'm putting together, it's like what my passion doesn't come from doing a big land project. I could give two craps about doing a land project. My passion comes from how I can do it and how other people, like, what gets me jazzed up about that land project is going like, oh, I get to sell pieces of land to other people so they can experience what I've experienced over here for the last 5 years. That excites me. Getting Tom's water project involved, that excites me. So it's not the actual land project that excites me. It's what it can do and how it can benefit others. That's really fulfilling. It just takes it to such a new level. And that's what I hear. Like, it's been so cool, this whole podcast, because since you started talking, I kind of automatically do the identify, don't compare that I learned in recovery. So when I'm listening to somebody, I'm listening to understand them, to connect with them, to identify with them, not to compare our stories and see the differences in them. So, like, even though our stories, the specifics of our stories are actually different, I could identify and resonate with every part of your story because, like, when you were struck sober, well, I had one of those. I wasn't struck sober, but I was struck spiritually. So I'm like, oh, that was the same experience, and then this, and then this. And I bet you I've had like 20 of those moments as you've been talking about how externally it looks a little bit different how it happened in your life than the way it happened in my life, but it was energetically it was the same thing. It's amazing. So
yes. and that's the
I'm
power
all
of
jazzed up listening to you.
No, I appreciate that. And that's the power of the we, basically the we. And where I believe, this is my belief, there are deities out there and until you and I are walking on water, we're going to always probably call it a we, a human self, a higher self, an inner self. I believe there were people that were born and raised that didn't have the other parts. They just had a higher self. So their capacities were uniquely different. We're talking about them 2,000 years later, and good for them. But I say for us, until you and I are walking on water, right? Might not happen this time around, but we can live from that higher sense of self. The more we live it, the more we attract it. Like you said, that's universal law. And the more people are doing it. And like you just mentioned about the whole workforce of people that work in Tom's world, that group is growing every year. It's growing. Yeah. That percentage is growing every year. And the world is a big place, but not really. You know, especially with the way technology and funds are. I did the math. There's 400 million people that don't have water in Africa. And literally, let's just say that it cost $5,000 per 2,000 people. You can do the math. It's like $4 billion. You know, $4 billion, everybody in Africa has, you know, a well somewhere. And I did the math based on our global economy, the global world. $4 billion is 1/1000th of 1%. 1/1000th of 1%. And the entire continent of Africa has running water, some way, somehow, right? And 10, 20 years ago, it wasn't possible. Technology wasn't there. 10, 20 years ago, the Tom Flames and the Chris Wholesome and these people, they were brand new. They were a month into their spiritual world now, right? Now they're 20 years later. So I firmly believe that my role, you know, what is my role? Project Smile, you know about Project Smile. Project Smile is my nonprofit that's spreading free global education around the planet, right? And really what it's doing is bringing awareness and letting people that need free education or free career paths go there. We've had over 40,000 downloads, and our goal is 1 million. And then when we hit 1 million, our goal will be 5 million. You know how it works, right?
Right.
But where I see my role, my voice, right, is you were telling me, and again, you were telling me the different things that you needed, but basically, because I heard your story now, right? Now I have the opportunity to tell people, hey, I got this guy in Dominican Republic. He's got this really cool land project, and if you invest, he's going to help a big nonprofit for 2 minutes. There's going to be somebody out there that they're going to say, I want to meet that guy, right?
Right.
So my role with my books, my next book, which is Awaken Greatness, we're working to get on the New York Times bestseller list next July. So it's a whole program between now and then, right? And why do I want to do that? I got a good life, Glenn. You know, I can hardly wait to come hang out with you for a week, sleep on your floor. But the more awareness we can bring, right, to and it's so funny. I was in South Africa. These people, eyes like this, hearts like this, smiles like this, and a lot of them have zero money, as you know. Yeah. And people think, you know, in our world, you know, the American world, and the I know it's not just the U.S., but people that have money, you know, we think we're the ones helping others. I'm like, listen, dude. Yeah. Tell you, about the only thing you have is money. These people have connection, they have community, they have love in their heart, they have all of that. So the real benefit that people like us are bringing to the people of the world with money is, you know what? If I can help enough people move from gratitude to grace, then you have $1 million in the bank, and you have this really cool feeling while you're driving your fourth Mercedes. You have this really cool feeling that you can't describe, where I'm helping 2,000 people have water. And that cool feeling, they don't even know it's gone out of their bank account, but that spiritual event, that's really my message. My message of my message of Awaken Greatness, the call to action. The call to action is, let's wake up 1 million people. We wake up 1 million people. And it's, you know, as you know, Glenn, we don't have any secrets. You know, we're not teaching anybody anything, right? It's already in them. And the more of us who live it, the more people say, oh, I get that. That. And I firmly believe we help 1 million people move from gratitude to grace. All of humanity will be healed from that position. My role, my passion is this water thing, right? There's all sorts of different people with all sorts of different passions. And there's not better or worse. I've got several people that are in the human trafficking. I literally met a man in Vietnam. They've saved 3,400 street kids. 3,400. Again, he's been doing it 22 years. I'm 60. I'm not sure where you are. These guys are in their 40s, started in their 20s. And for 20 years, he's been doing it. A whole organization of people. So that world is growing, that prolonged caregivers. And my role, my message is to kind of be the voice between, all those different worlds. So,
yeah. I think that's important too. Like I like the way you're phrasing this because like, of course I've been on my path for 21 years. So it's really just how I live, Yeah. However, there are always kind of points where you advance a little bit or where you understand something more in depthly and stuff. And I remember it was around the time I came over here, like around 5 years ago or something, COVID was going on and and a lot of the political stuff was really getting heightened around that time. And I remember, if I remember right, I think it was after I came to visit here for 9 weeks. I was home for 7 weeks getting everything all straightened out. And then I moved over here. So I think it was during that 7 weeks. And I came across this video series of Time of the Seventh Sun. And it reminds me of what you're talking about, because the shift that I got there, it's like an 8-part series that they were streaming for free, but you had to watch it. Each part was only 24 hours available. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to watch 8 parts in 8 days. It's not going to happen, but I'll check out the first one. So I check out the first one. Don't I end up watching all 8 in a row? And it was all on different parts along the lines of what you were just talking about. It's all people, like different spiritual outlooks, different people building earth-friendly homes and why they are, water access, like all kinds of different topics that were in alignment with the betterment of humanity. Right. And after watching that for 8 days, what it really did is it knocked me. I was already trying to stop staring at the external world because I knew it was messed up and I knew spirituality was the way to go. So I was pulling my attention away from the external world and putting it more on the spiritual world and spiritual concepts. But that series helped me because it showed me people all around the world in all different areas of life who were bettering humanity in different ways. And most of these people have been doing it for decades and they know what they're doing. And a lot of them have technology, as you mentioned, blended into ancient wisdom to what they're doing to make it that much more. And they're making these huge changes. And I realized, I'm like, I'm not alone, man. Right. There is so many people on the planet that have been doing this since the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And we don't hear about them, but they have all this structured and set up and know-how, and they've been doing it for a long time and they know what they're doing and it's really easy. And the technology is helping us, Right. So I'm like, it really gave me that new level of hope for our future and creating a new paradigm based in love and spirituality and working together as a community and being the we, like your book talks about, you know, and that's it. And we need a voice. The negative is so loud right now that we need people like you, hopefully people like me that are coming along and going, I understand that. I see all the problems, people. But if you would just look over in this direction towards the fulfillment and love, and you can actually live on this earth, do a bunch of good for people and really feel fulfilled and like you're living your life purpose, live a legacy. And I think we need to expose more people to the reality that this is out there, and we are doing it, and you can hop on board too.
Yes, and I agree completely, Glenn. You know, my live stream, I think when you were on, we had 49,000 people. The following week, we had 57,000 people. People are asking me, like, Joe, how do you do it? I said, I don't know. I don't know. I said to my men, and Glenn, I'm telling you, I said to my guys, right? I said, this better be real. I mean, like, because, you know, technology does all sorts of stuff. I said, it better be real. And they're like, what are you talking about? Of course it's real. And I said, because people are going to start watching. It's like what's happening isn't of this world, right? And because what the live stream is the smile. The smile is about bringing an inspirational message, like yours was beautiful, to the people of the world that they might feel connected, but it's hard. They're waking up with no water. You know, they've got those challenges. And how do they shift out of that? That's why at the end of my call, I tell everybody how you start shifting yourself out, move into your own divine self. Well, how do you do that? Look around the room. If you're causing a smile in somebody else, then you're living from a higher you. And as we know, the more we live from a higher you, the external world just kind of shifts. So we're up to 57,000 people. Next week, it might be 40. It might be 1 million. I don't know, right? But the whole idea, the reason that was all created is because I want the people of the world who feel like they've been lost and forgotten and just no one knows to know there is a whole world of people out there, these prolonged caregivers. They might not have reached you yet, right? Yeah. But the only reason if we had a list of all the prolonged caregivers like you're talking about, there's probably 50,000 of them or something. I don't know. There's a bunch of them. And the only thing they need to double and triple and set is money. And now there's more money than ever before, right?
Right. So, and it's coming. That's where we are in human history. I mean, we're a society based in money, and money isn't evil. It's just a tool. To me, there's no difference between whether I give people's, if I'm spiritually advising a construction worker and then that construction worker comes and builds me a house, there's no difference between that than if I'm spiritual advising somebody and then he pays me and then I go take that money and hire a construction person to build my house. Like it's the same thing. It's just so money is a symbol, but this is where we are. I truly believe it is that money is going to be part of the spiritual expansion because we're going to need communities. We're going to need new ways of doing things, and they're going to need to expand to help more people. So it's just a natural organic aspect of this spiritual shift that's happening on the planet, is that the money is coming in. It's one of the reasons why with this project I'm doing, like people are thinking that I'm absolutely insane doing this project because I don't have the money to do this project, and they're like, oh, you're out of your mind. And it's like, no, it's not me though. It's a spiritual movement. I'm being guided to this and it's going to benefit people. And that's just the beginning. Like this isn't the end. Like this project is just the beginning of all the philanthropy that's going to blossom off of it. Which is beautiful. Sure.
And when people really realize the giving of money, you're not really giving money. What you're doing, you're giving hope. So
if you do it right, if you throw money at things, then it's just throwing money. But I think we agree, like, because of your Smile project and stuff, I like the concept of it. We're on the same page because you don't throw money at a problem. You throw money at the solution, and then the solution can change generationally.
That's exactly correct. Yeah. That's exactly correct. And these prolonged caregivers, like we're talking about, right? They've got these systems in place. You can't be doing it for 20 years and it not be working, truly. So we've got kind of the hands-on people, which honestly is not me. It's the Tom Flames of the world. This gentleman that does the Blue Dragon. I mean, these people, they're hands-on and they've been hands-on forever. That structure is in place. We've got that generation of entrepreneurials that that have that little bit extra. We've got that generation lap of the new people coming in, like you're talking about, the technologies. And so all of the pieces are in place and we're seeing it work. Now we're just going to continue to amp it up and ramp it up. And quite honestly, when would I know it's worked? Is when somebody tells me that 95% of every person in Africa has water, because when that happens, the other things are already happening also. I think there's like the mechanics of water is a financial solution. Where you have the human trafficking and the no jobs in India with 1 billion people and a bunch of people. There's other challenges that are going to take more generational growth, if you will. The poverty levels in India, but they all have water, literally. So I think there are direct, specific, like bring the bottom bar up higher that people are doing. And then everybody benefits from that. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was the Rand Institute. I think they said that there's no military solution to terrorism.
Right.
That it's just when the people have enough food, water, education, basic needs fulfilled in that area, terrorism dissolves. And I know we're not talking about terrorism, but it's the same principle.
But it's the same process.
If you have people, communities that have enough of the basic needs, then and they're not just trying to survive, then they're not so taken when, let's say, a bad way comes across, because they're like, why would I need to do something bad? I have everything that I need.
Right. And that's the whole premise. That was the whole premise that Project Smile was built on, the foundation of our free education, our free career paths, which we've got 20 on there now. Over time, we'll have 200 for that exact reason. Somebody comes, they're in their teens. We give them an outline, a 2 or 3 or 4, 8-week course where they can learn a new entrepreneurial something and then build upon that over their lifetime. And that's truly what that's all about. 31,000 people have downloaded that, Our goal is 1 million, then 10, then whatever, right? For the exact principle you just said. If you give people knowledge, because if there's no knowledge, then Johnny's got the same knowledge that Johnny's dad, who has the same knowledge as Johnny's grandfather. And in the Western world, or in the more of the modern world, it naturally is expanding because technology and exposure. In the worlds where there's poverty, right, and they don't have it, generation after generation after generation. So we're a living example that it works, and programs like yours. I don't know how long your podcast has been around, but the whole podcasting concept didn't exist 10 years ago, barely, right? Yeah. So it's a whole new world of getting information out there. So it's been great, and I really appreciate you having me on your show.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And I just looked at the time and we blew through an hour. So, so I'm going to wrap it up. But yes, thank you so much for being on and for all the good that you're doing. And not only the good that you do, but also the voice that you use to share this good, because then that mushrooms into other people doing it. So, thanks for being on, and thanks for all that you do. I appreciate it.
Glenn, thank you. It's been a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. I'm going to wrap it up now, and I'll be right back with you, Joe.
Okay.
But we'll wrap it up. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you soon. Peace.